What is going on, people? Welcome to Nightly Notions podcast. Welcome. If this is the first time you are listening in, this is the first time you are coming to the channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button on your way in, because we do this Nightly Notions 3 times a week. And of course, we jump in between to do any other news and information that may come up for the discussion. But don't forget to hit that like button on your way in. Of course, hit that subscribe, and of course smash that bell notification so you can be kept up to date with all the conversations that take place and all the conversations that happen on BLKMailTV and of course the Nightly Notion podcast. So big shout out to all the family, big shout out to all the BLKMailTV family up in the room already. You know what I'm saying? House of Bloom, F and Logistics, you know what I'm saying? Big shout out to all of you guys. Thanks for the support. And of course, this is a platform. This particular program, Nightly Notion podcast, is speaking to the men, trying to rebuild back brotherhood. And this topic, the topic we've been speaking about for the last month, I'm going to get straight into it. The topic we've been speaking about for the last month has been about image. And let me put up the banner so you guys can see it. So today's conversation, guys, is going to be about melanated masculinity and restoring the male image of our melanated brothers. So we're going to have the conversation. But before we have the conversation, I want to read an article. And this article speaks to masculinity and what masculinity is supposed to be about, right? Now, of course, we're going to get into what we think and how we understand masculinity to be, coming from an LSG perspective. But let's have a conversation. Let's read the article and let's see whether there's any truth to what this journalist is speaking about. And let's delve deeper into whether we can learn something from what is masculinity and whether it relates to the things that we understand masculinity to be growing up, whether we've been taught the right understanding. Because we have to accept that as a people who say that they've been through trauma, slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, segregation, lynching, economic castration, all of the above. If we can say that that's happened to us as a people, then we have to understand that we have to reevaluate ourselves in order to free ourselves from the shackles of the oppression. Because remember, we being oppressed as a people were put in chains and put in shackles physically. But when those chains came off in times past, the mental slavery was still there. When we attained our freedom and they said, here you go, you're free. Were we free in our mind? And now we're coming to that precipice, we're coming to that point, we're coming to that impasse where we as a people have to redefine what it is that we are saying we are, what it is that we are saying who we are, who we want to be. There's been a perpetual image that's been portrayed about our people that we have to take accountability for. And I spoke about it in the last podcast with Birth of a Nation. And I showed some of the video that Kevin Samuels put up. The video is actually quite long. It's about 3 to 4 hours. So I wasn't going to put it up. But if you want to watch the snippet with Kevin Samuels, you can watch that. But you can also watch my review of the last podcast, which I did speaking about Birth of a Nation. And the ethnic image that was portrayed, that was put out as a piece of propaganda, a piece of lies, a piece of misinformation, disinformation that would what? Oh, excuse me. That's my phone ringing off. Excuse me. I forgot to put it on silent. Terrible. Naughty. But let's get back into it. Right? So I know. I got to give myself a clap for that one. My phone was going off. So that one's for me, family. All right? I should have ready and waiting, coming to the room. You know what I'm saying? I should have put my phone on silent, but I didn't put my phone on silent. You know what I'm saying? So what you heard in the background was my phone going off. I apologize.
I said, bitch, who raised you?
Yeah, that one's for me. Okay, family. Big shout out to the BLKMailTV family in the building. You know what I'm saying? Big shout out to Royal Risings. Big shout out House of Blooms. Big shout out F and Logistics. Big shout out to F and Studios. Thanks for the private message. Yeah. Okay, so as I was saying, family. So we're going to get into the discussion and we're going to read the article and we're going to see whether there's some truth to what is being spoken about in this article. So let's get into it. And you know how we do. We're going to do it with some BLKMailTV flair. sit back, let's enjoy, let's have the conversation, right? Let's listen with intently to grow, to learn, to develop. Because this platform is about self-improvement. LSG, love plus support equals growth. Hashtag every time. We're not talking about emotional love. We're talking about applicable love. Truth, accountability, honor, plus support, which is an independent mindset, group economics, which equals the growth that we want to see in our community and the outcomes that we want to establish with our children and with our families. But let's get into it. So this article is What is Masculinity? Written by S.GMindset. And there you have Harrison Ford on the front of the article. Let me see if I can expand this a little bit. Can I change the view and make it more palatable? There we go. Okay, so that hopefully that you guys can see that properly. So it says, what is masculinity? Who defines it? Who makes the rules? Is it an intrinsic value or culturally determined? And is it even real? So he's asking the question, this journalist, and he says, sometime back I came across an intriguing double bind. I found it in the comment section of some feminist website on an article written by a man about his enjoyment of pegging. I don't know what that is. I.e., when a man lets a woman shag him with a... I'm not going to read the rest of that. You can see it for yourself. But anyway, some male commentator had insulted this writer and called him less than a man. But then the feminist readers of the website piled onto this commentator, and they all had the same attack line for the commentator. I find that very interesting. And one thing we have to understand, people, about indoctrination and mindset, right, is when people are spouting the same lines, the same rhetoric, without thought or reason to cognitive thinking, to critical thinking, to analyzing and verifying whether these things are true. You have to start looking at the bigger picture and understanding that there's an indoctrination that's taking place, and more people than you realize have fallen foul to this dastardly deed. But let me continue. Because you've got those rich people, big shout out to the BLKMailTV family coming in. You've got those people that be, the powers that be, sitting over there, rubbing their hands with glee, rubbing their hands with excitement in the fact that we are sitting here arguing with each other over femininity, masculinity, division, while they sit there holding the bag, holding the riches, holding the resource. Because I always say on this platform, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Precious. Because those that be, it's precious to them, it's precious to them, it's precious to them. So it's so precious to them that they would leave us in confusion. So let's get some clarification and find out what's really going on behind the scenes. So let's go. He says this. The one line that they all attacked him for and they all repeated was this: what's the matter? Are you not man enough to take it up the rectum? I'm not understanding why that would make you man enough to do something. I don't know, but clearly it's an insult. But let's go into it. He says it's a fascinating rhetorical device. Either you agree to receptive anal sex, which has profound effects on the male psyche. Anecdotally, men who receive this sort of sex become more feminine. This is what the writer says, moodier and bitchier, effectively making you no longer a full man. Or if you don't agree to the receptive insult, in which case you're not man enough. This is a double bind, and this double bind got him, the writer, confused. He says, what is masculinity anyway? How do we define what is or isn't masculinity? Who in our society holds the right to craft these definitions, men or women? Is masculinity decided by the society or by the man or by something else? A very interesting question that he asks, because at this point in this time, in this age, we're having the conversations about men and women and relationships. We have men going their own way. We have hypergamy at its highest. And as a result of this, we have the male and female continuum at odds with each other. So much so that the birth rate within the Western Hemisphere has decreased across all races, white, black, Asian, otherwise. So this is not a phenomenon that is just conducive to one particular race. But this is a phenomenon that's conducive to those that live in the West. Something to ponder on. But let us continue. Let us continue. For all of those who just come into the chat before I go on, family, appreciate you coming and joining the conversation. You see what I'm saying? It's much love. But just as you come into the conversation, guys, smash that like button on your way in. Don't forget to hit that bell notification. And of course, share the video, subscribe to the channel, because we're going to get into this conversation. We're talking about the masculinity of our melanated brothers and restoring the male image back. So let me go back into the article. Okay, let's go. He says, the answer will intrigue you, I think. And don't worry, in the end, we'll address the feminist double bind attack too, which the women earlier addressed to the commentator, and show how a firm concept of masculinity makes attacks like these run off your back like water. Exactly, House of Bloom. So-called first world problems. And this is one of the points that I want us to understand, that we live in a bubble, we live in a matrix, we live in a society that shows us what we want to see. And because it shows us what we want to see, we are cut off. We are, for lack of a better word, in a delusional state, thinking that the problems that we have is major problems, when really they're only first world problems. It's only like, you know,
oh, son of a gun. You thought I was going to say son of a bitch, didn't you?
Yeah, it's just like hitting your thumb with a hammer. It's not that big a deal compared to the problems that the other parts of the world are dealing with. But you know, let me not digress. Let me not go into, because you know I can speak about all the rest of that and the rest of the world, right? But let's go back to it. Let's go back to it. So he says, masculinity as a rule, ladies, for all the ladies paying attention, for all the ladies on the platform, big shout out to all the BLKMailTV family ladies, beautiful, intelligent, intellectual, traditional ladies that want to elevate their community and elevate their families to a higher state of being and a higher state of consciousness. Yes, to the ladies. He says, the writer says, if you are a male virgin, should you tell her or not? So this is his conversation, right? I'm not going to bore you with that part. He said, the first step to understanding masculinity is to understand these various social rules, both where they run together and where they diverge. For example, masculinity in virtually every culture includes fearlessness in battle. Now, there's a conversation going on about alpha male, beta males, this, that, and the other, but let's understand masculinity first. Fearlessness in battle. The protection of one's kinfolk and tribe, meaning what? And this ties into an alpha male also, because I disagree with some of the commentators that on the YouTube platform saying an alpha male just gets his bag, does his own thing, gets himself to the highest, smashes all the girls, and don't care about no one else. That's not an alpha. Because an alpha takes care of the pack. An alpha leads the pack. An alpha defends the pack. An alpha nourishes the pack. So he says, the protection of one's kinfolk and tribe. The sexuality, of course, do women desire him? This is one of the attributes of masculinity, that women desire a masculine man. Make no bones about it. And ladies, don't be ashamed about it. Stand in that square. Because a masculine man, as we're going to discover later on, is what you're going to need to help you build your legacy and prosperity that you're going to build with him. Another point, he says, firmness of character. This is what masculinity is. Firmness of character. Now, we have to look into the word character, family, because a lot of people seem to think that the dating game is about swipe left, swipe right culture. And what I keep telling people over here on this platform at LSG is that, listen, we must understand character of people. Look at the qualities of an individual, whether you be male or female. And do these characteristics of this individual apply into your life? Do they fit into your narrative? Are you able to grow and build together? Or is one of you going to be simping?
Hi, Forrest. I know you just got back from Vietnam and you love me, but I'm going to go run a train with this group of Black Panthers I just met.
Okay, Jenny.
Hi, Forrest. I know you came all this way to New York to visit me, but I'm going to go do blow and have sex with a bunch of stockbrokers.
Okay, Jenny.
Hi, Forrest. Now that I have the most contagious and incurable disease known to mankind, I'll finally have pity sex with you.
Okay, Jenny.
Or are you going to be whining and complaining because you didn't match the person up with you?
I've had it with your whining and bumbling.
Because you're supposed to be looking at the characteristics of an individual and the person to build with. So ladies, when you're looking for the masculinity in a man, make sure you are looking for the qualities and characteristics that attain to a masculine man. It says firmness of character, certainty of self, and resolve in the face of hardship. Ability, capability, and skill are the things this man is able to do. Are there things this man is able to do well? And brothers, likewise, this is how you assess masculinity in yourself, but also in your peers around you. Men who lack these qualities, let me continue. Men who lack these qualities often seem less masculine, no matter where in the world you go. Remember, these were the cultural paradigms that were established through majority of cultures in the world. However, there are various other more cultural dependent signals too that one should take note of. Now, some of these go back to depending on the society at the time. It says in a hunter-gatherer society, which, you know, back in the days where you were looking, scavenging for food, hunting with a spear on your back, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, you had to fight off lions and tigers and bears and all the rest of it.
My nigga.
Or when your man come home with the bacon, you be looking at him like that, like Denzel. You be like, You be like, So in that society, the ability to track, navigate the wilds, and hunt determined the man. A man who cannot do this is little better than a woman. This was in the hunter-gatherer society. So let's pay attention to the society we're in and open our eyes so that we can apply better metrics, better principles, so that we can get better outcomes for our relationships, both as women and as men. So let me go on. It says in the agrarian society, meaning farming, husbandry, being able to work the field and grow food and harvest, it was men's work because it was back-breaking laborers. A man who cannot do this, or even one who does not have the callous hands, is deemed soft, weak, and unmanly in that society. In an urban society, one's connections, ability to conform with the crowd, the in crowd, financial power, status symbols, university degrees, job titles, company worked for, car owned. These things, so to speak, make one more or less masculine in the urban society. A country bumpkin with no education, network, career, or degree is just a body in this environment, and he's no more a shadow of a man than a man outright. That's the perception in this modern society. So let's gain some more understanding. Let's go a bit deeper, family. Let's go a bit deeper. I hope you guys are still with me. You know what I'm saying? You guys need to wake up, you know, before I get the Kool-Aid guy up in here.
No!
Oh, no.
Oh, no!
Oh no!
Oh, no! Oh, yeah!
Yeah, so I hope you guys are woken up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. All right, let's go. Let's get in. So he also says, however, in inner city Black American society, you're not a man until you've done time in prison. Again, social paradigms, right? From society's point of view. This is not valued as a signal of masculinity in other segments of American society, but it is so in some parts of Black American society. However, in the Russian society, and we're just giving you different comparisons here, because no one society has the monopoly on masculinity, but they all have their different inputs from a societal viewpoint or perspective. And we're going to get down into the core from a man's perspective also. That's right, family. Appreciate that. Big shout out to Miss Rebel Jewel. Okay, let's get back into it. Man. It says, in the Russian society, it is a signal of masculinity for men to stand on the metro. Even if there are open seats available on the train for a man to sit, it is a signal of unmanliness for him to do so. Whereas in other societies, well, ain't nobody care about that. That don't mean anything. In Papua New Guinea tribes, in some Papua New Guinea tribes, a man is not a man until he drinks the semen of old men. Ugh.
You are really dumb, for real.
Oh man, see, totally different societies, totally different understandings. Oh man, that's hurting my eyes just reading that. Oh gosh.
And
We need to stop. That is crazy. I wouldn't agree with that level of manhood right there, family. But you know, hey, that's what some of the tribes do in Papua New Guinea. Okay, so they drink the semen of older men from his tribe and inherits their power. In Western society, drinking a man's semen is a good way to lose what shred of masculinity you have left. Brothers be coming around drinking. Oh, no, that family. Oh, gosh. No, that just made me weaker than these, man. Oh, man. Yeah, I'm glad I was talking about it and not showing it, because if I showed the image of that, that would have turned y'all's stomach something else. You see what I'm saying? But, oh, no. Stop. But let's keep going, all right? Let's skip right past that one. To the point, he goes on back to the feminists again, to the point of the feminist attack that kicked off the article in the first place. It would seem to be more or less a cultural independent, it would seem to be more or less cultural independent masculinity signal too, of the woman saying taking it up the behind, right? So even though among societies with institutionalized homosexual acts, like Papua New Guinea, or male and male sexual acts like Papua New Guinea or drinking semen, or, you know, like the Greek Spartans of pedestry, right? Where they used to, in the Greek city of Sparta, some of the older soldiers used the younger male's thighs for sexual stimulation and release. Remember, this is Sparta, right? This is the Greek. Recognize the history, right? Male and male anal sex is frowned upon in Sparta. However, using one's thighs is not. And the male recipient of anal sex in Sparta is viewed as having yielded his masculinity. So when women and men have those jokes, you know, about, you know, taking up the behind, etc., you can understand why there's this notion, especially in the West, that is seen as a man losing his masculinity. That goes way back, as you can see, down to the history in the Spartan records of the Grecian Empire. So, no, my sister said, she goes, no different strokes. It's a sexual organ. They need to stop. Oh, sis, I don't know what to say to that one, you know. And that one is like, yo, that one leaves me in a corner, sitting in the room, talking to myself. Well, listen, when I read the article the first time, I was like, oh my God. I know. let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. Let's keep going. So he says, there's the Spartans there, right? You got your Spartans, right? This is Sparta. So all of you that didn't see the film, go watch the film. So let me go on. So we have these rules, right? And we can fairly say that these are the rules you must follow to be a man in any society, in any case, from the former list that we just mentioned. Obviously, depending on the society that you're in, the time, the age, and what's really going on at the time. So it's not stuck to one predefined or pre-existing structure, right? So that's what he's saying from the social perspective. So when you have society giving you a notion or giving you an impression or giving you a visual image, either through social media, even through TV, even whatever it is they're giving you, you have to use critical thinking and understand, is that what masculinity is? Or are you being fed a spoonful of lies? Because this is going to help you facilitate your relationships, both with men and women, going forward, building families and claiming back the resource wealth heritage and prosperity that we require from our people and break that generational curse, man. That's what I'm saying. But let's go on. One way to think of masculinity is as a set of rules. And this is where we're going to come back into LSG now, family. Love plus support equals growth, because we teach a set of rules instead of principles. So let's read. Follow these rules and you are masculine. Fail to follow the rules and you are not. The masculinity as a rule set explanation gels well with the idea of masculinity as something culturally defined. Each society decides how it wants to use its men, pay attention, and builds rules those men must follow to receive recognition as men within the society, and all the benefits that come with being recognized as men within that society. So you see, there's a social construct that's being placed upon men to act and behave in a certain manner so that they can get a recognition within the society to be classed, verified, recognized, and accepted as men. But is that what masculinity is? Let's find out. Yet there is a secondary condition to masculinity. So that was the primary. Let's deal with the secondary. And it runs even deeper than rules. This is where we're going into the core. The secondary condition is what we might call internal masculinity. It is based on character and values and offers an ability to bend rather than break that rules alone cannot afford you. Family, we need to pay close attention to this, because now we're going to the core of masculinity. And when you're dealing and when you're growing and when you're trying to recognize and find yourself as a man and find yourself as a brother and find yourself as a useful member of society in our community, as a melanated brother with a higher consciousness, then you must reach deep down into the core of your masculinity, because within that is what characterizes virtue, values, moral standards, and principles. It offers the ability to bend rather than breaking that rules cannot afford you alone. Woo! You got to sit back and just soak that up for a second, family, because brothers need to recognize. So let's get deeper. You've got the guy who knows the rules of masculinity and follows them, right? This is perhaps the majority of men in most societies. The rules are his guidepost, and you can see this in this type of men. They need the rules of the guideposts of masculinity to keep them on the straight and narrow, because masculinity is not something you're born with. It's something that you develop. And we're going to go deeper into it. So all the brothers on the platform right now, if you're feeling, you come in and you hear me talking and you feel a bit upset because I'm going into the masculinity of us and how we need to deal with it, and if you feel pricked in your spirit and you feel hurt, I understand, bro. I understand. We grew up in a matriarchal society up here in the West. So a lot of us brothers, we're too emotional, we're too effeminate in our feelings. But you know what time it is?
I've had it with your whining and bumbling.
That's what Skeletor says, you know what I'm saying? So we listen, he said we've had enough of it and we need to get back and take back our power so that we can restore our communities, our women, our children back into a place of power and leadership, structure, discipline, integrity, because we are beautiful people. So let's get back into our power. All right, so the rules are his guideposts, his runaway lights, and his salvation. His strength comes from them, and his certainty also comes from them. The writer says, women are the opposite of rules. They are, on the whole, chaotic and unruly because emotions are not governed by rule and rationale and logic, but by default, by definition, are emotional. But he goes on. At least compared to men in this regard anyway, because women can be logical and women can be very rational when dealing with other things. So he goes on. He says, women follow no rules that they do not have to follow. And if a man tells a woman he follows rules, a woman will desire to challenge his rules. Not all women, but obviously that's his article. So let's go with what he's saying. This is not to say that they aren't rules-based women. There you go. So I already said it and he concurs. They are rule-based women. So sisters, do not get in your feelings when you hear us speak like this, because we recognize that the exception is not the rule, but at the same time, the exception is recognized. You do have a logical component and you do have a rational component. But let me go on. But even the most dedicated rule-based woman, you will find, break their rules a lot more and often than rule-based men do. If he cannot defend his rules to her satisfaction, she will view him as weak or irrational for claiming to follow rules that he himself does not truly believe in or cannot back up. Now, sisters know this on the real, because you know there's some man that be talking the talk, right? And you could tell off the gate whether this man's really about it. And then he's going to go back on his own rules. He's going to flaunt his own rules. That's what we're talking about: integrity, honor. The first foundational pillar of love plus support, of LSG is love. Within love is honor. Honor means integrity. Being able to hold fast to your rules, standards, and discipline, even when nobody is watching. This is a characteristic that you want to look for in a man, that you want to look for in a woman. Because marriage, union, family requires you to have the backbone to stick it through, to hold the rules, to do your duty, for not your sake, for the sake of your children and your children's children. We've been playing games up in here. We have to understand that we've got legacy to leave behind and a people to restore. That's only if you want it, though. If you don't want it, that's cool. Stay where you at. Ain't trying to convert nobody, ain't trying to force nobody, ain't trying to berate nobody into it. We all know where we stand. So let's get back into it. All right. He says this: the pile on the feminist made against the man criticizing the other man for taking anal sex was an instinctive female reaction to a man virtue signaling his own set of rules, meaning it was a test in the collective form. In essence, the test was, you say these rules define a man. These are the women asking the guy. How sure are you of your own masculinity, though? This is the questioning, the challenge. What if I tell you your rules are unmasculine? Will you waver? This is where integrity steps in. Truth, honor, accountability, and integrity is the first pillar of LSG. Will you waver? Will you fall? Will you falter? I'm speaking to my brothers here. And of course, my sisters. But predominantly to my brothers here, because you know how we do on this platform. Anyway, so he held up the fat target, and women, ever the mischief makers, went right for it. So he's having the discussion about what happened between the commentator and the women. These tests get to the heart of true masculinity beyond the rules. So these women test, which is good, sisters, test his masculinity. But not in a rude, obnoxious, and brash and berating way. No, my sisters. No. You must be elegant. You must be eloquent. You must be stylish in how you address this, in how you ascertain whether he's masculine or not, whether he's a masculine man by the rules or whether he's a masculine man by the core. And I'll go into it more. The true masculinity is of core value set. The true masculinity is a core value set that the man has, a set of values and principles that a man holds within his inner self. It is his guiding line. It is his principle. It is, what did we say earlier? It is his guidepost. And even though, let me go on. Let me not jump the gun. Because you know I get excited sometimes, family, when I start having these conversations, right? I'm sitting up here in my chair getting all excited like,
Got him! Got him!
Yeah, that's me. I'll be sitting up in there like, yes, we need to get this out. But let me just wind my neck back in and humble myself for a hot second. So the true masculinity is a core value set that a man has. The rules are mere surface level manifestations. So what you see in the rule-based masculinity is surface level, my brothers. It's surface level, my sisters, of what he believes inside and what he stands for and what he stands on. But as the writer says, in the case of many men, the rules are the rules and they follow. Sorry, the rules are rules they follow to be thought of as men amongst other men within themselves. Because I can relate to this. I always uphold myself by certain standards, morals, and principles through my whole entire life. I've never once gone with the in crowd. I've always tried to stand out of the crowd. I've always tried to go my own way and do my own thing. Some people will say that's because I'm a Sagittarius, and, but because they deal with the star signs and all that. But I've always had a set of core principles within myself, which is what brought me to my family, brought me to my successes and my failures in my life, because I'm not perfect. And I make that known. I make no bones about it. Yes, I have had successes. And yes, I have had failures. But these things go into what makes a man. How did you recover from them? Because it's not about how many times you fall, gentlemen, but it's about how many times you get up and keep going. I've fallen many times, but I keep getting up. Sometimes I don't even know where I get the strength. Some people say it's the ancestors. Some people say the Most High. I know what I believe. And yet we still go. But for wherever you are, for wherever you are, recognize that as a man, you must hold to a set of principles, standards, and morals. That's what makes you a man. This is a core inner set of values, not the outward show of masculinity, which is on the surface level of manifestation. No. That means you're still a boy. But let me continue. Despite not having their internals in a place yet where they would be masculine, regardless of the rules they followed, these are dealing with other men. This works exactly like having rules you follow when going out to pick up a girl, versus being good with girls. You don't need rules. And let me give you an example. When we were growing up as men, right, there were some brothers who had pickup lines. Those are men that had rules. And there were some men who just had the ability to speak to women. Not because they were, trying to sweet them with sweet words, but they were just more comfortable and more confident, or more had the vocabulary to match a woman word for word. Not allow their nervous disposition in speaking to a woman to overcome them. So this works exactly like having rules. You follow when you're going out to pick up a girl, like the chat up lines, versus being so good with girls, you don't need rules. Meaning, you can break the rules and still get the girl. Meaning, I don't need to use the chat up lines. I can go in straight for, hey, what's your name? Where you going? What you doing? Where you from? You want to go out for a drink? You want to, hey. Obviously, that's not my chat up lines. I'm just talking on the podcast here, but hey. I'll let my wife let you know what my chop lines were. She still was embarrassing me about it. She literally told everybody at the LSG 365 birthday bash we had the other day about how we first met. So, yeah. If you ever have that conversation, you can ask her. She'll let you know. Ain't no shame in my game. Pimping. No.
My nigga.
No, I'm just playing, people. I'm just playing. Let's get back into it. Okay, so the beginner, the man who begins and comes to his masculinity is coming to be aware. Oh, good question. House of Blooms asks question: does maturity play a part in men's innate masculinity? Yes, it does. And I think we're going to read into it too. And let me read some more, and it's going to reveal a bit more. So does a man's maturity affect his innate masculinity? Beautiful question. Because let me finish this paragraph first, and then I'm going to answer that question, right? So the beginner needs rules. The intermediate needs rules also. The guy who's talented with girls doesn't need so many rules, even though there are some rules applied. But girls having experienced men they liked a lot who did not seemingly have rules will tell you you don't need rules either. Why? Because their experience with those men was that they didn't have any rules. Even though the men did, they were able to mask it or able to overcome showing those rules and allowing the woman to stand confident in her femininity by observing his masculinity. Rules can help steady a man as he discovers what his values are. To go to your question, it's common for younger men to be less sure of themselves, of what they believe in and what they stand for. And rules help light the way. So let me go back and answer your question, sis, because that was an amazing question. That's right. No shame in my game. Nope. Question: does maturity play a part in a man's innate masculinity? Yes, it does. Because as we as men, speaking for myself, we're growing up, right? And the men I grew up around, the boys I grew up around. Yes, we're still boys for a very long time. However, some of us have that masculinity from puberty activated at a more different level, and that deals with your testosterone. So what you have at that early stage is you have the early stages of the masculinity coming out of a man, the rawness, the sexuality, all those kind of things that you experience during pubertyness, the aggression, those things that you experience or young men experience at that time, as they grow older and gain more experience in life and hold fast to more of those rules or exercise those rules, test those rules, and the more that those rules come back to be confirmed or denied, allow those men to develop maturity. But if the men don't have rules that are applied, they don't come out of that teenager, adolescent, masculine phase. They remain boys for a long time. And you see it in their mannerisms, the way they're easily provoked with each other, when they're staring each other down in the street. I have men looking at me longer than they're supposed to look at me. And I'm thinking, what's going on here? Because where I grew up back in the day, that was cause for a fight. Because men didn't stare at each other, so blatantly. So it does play a part in your masculinity and your maturity. Because as you mature and you get older, you put into subjection those rules. And as you get older, as you get more mature, the rules that you had that put you in subjection, you're able to now break away from, depending on the experiences that you had relating to those rules. For example, we gave the analogy of meeting girls. So when the guy goes out to meet girls, he's going to use lines in the beginning as he's young. But as he matures and gets more experience, he meets different women and understands that lines don't actually do anything. But the lines come from his personality and his core masculinity, his ability to be informed, educated, be funny, humorous, witty. And lines, so to speak, develop from conversation as opposed to one-liners. So I hope that answers the question. I don't want to go too deep into it, but essentially, yes, the maturity does play a part in a man's innate masculinity. As he matures, his masculinity changes because his rules and guidelines and guideposts change also. He can either, the more immature he is, means the less integrity he holds to the rules. But the more mature he is and the more masculine he is, the more he holds to the rules of integrity that have guided him to that point. Ooh, we got some more questions up in here. Roy Rising said that battery died. Don't worry, sis. We're here. I ain't going nowhere just yet. Second question. Can modern feminist ideologies affect men's innate masculinity? Or does it only affect the surface level perceived masculine traits? Beautiful question. I would say the feminist ideologies, in my opinion, do affect men's innate masculinity within them as they grow up, because in the West, they have a matriarchal society, and it's frowned upon to look at your mother in any negative way, shape, or form. Number one. Number two, when that set mother, not all women, but these particular women do this, when they berate, belittle, ostracize, demonize, and vilify men over the ears of their children, this ideology of the feminist movement is not about equality, but is about vilifying and taking over the power in the man. At least this fourth version of it is. So this narrative that's been pushed over these men reduce their innate ability to have those guidelines and those guideposts, because they don't have a father in the house. They don't have male role models around to mirror and implement those guidelines or guideposts. They only have the guidelines and guideposts from the feminine perspective, their mothers or the females from their family. So now their guidelines and guideposts are skewed. Rather than it leading to a more masculine, mature behavior in a man, they now adopt feminine guidelines and guideposts, which leave them with just surface level perceived masculine traits, because they never go deep enough or have the ability to go deep enough to develop the innate core masculine traits, which is why we have a lot of feminine men around the place and young boys with violence, fighting each other, stabbing each other, all the rest of these things. These come from an emotional sense of rules and guideposts that they've implemented into themselves growing up. They've learned from seeing from their matriarchal society, single mother household, sisters, all the women around, being told that men ain't ish, men are dogs, etc., etc., etc. These things have a mental effect. The same way we can accept post-traumatic slave syndrome and the effects that had, we've had a good portion of 70 years of this affecting men. Generations have grown into this. And it's affected women also. And I'll give it a perfect example.
Your grandmother, your great-grandmother actually could work with a black man with more trauma.
Because they understood that the black woman and the black man are on the same side. Now that we're all free and independent and we could do whatever we want to, why would we seek to, be one with the black man? We even think that.
So that sister is able to make that statement because the masculinity within the melanated brother community has fallen so far short that they have to go by themselves to do that. So this is why this podcast is particularly for the men, because I'm trying to speak to my brothers and share with my brothers that, listen, yes, we've had a messed up upbringing. Yes, we've had trauma. Yes, these things have happened to both men and women. But as the men, I'm talking to you, brothers, we have to step into our purpose, step into our light, and step into our core masculinity. If you don't have that yet, then you need to be pairing up and linking up with other brothers, as I mentioned earlier, of character in the core masculinity sense, not on the surface level of perceived masculine traits. Oh, I'm a strong alpha dude. Oh, I get girls. Oh, Nah. We're talking about principles, characteristics, moral standards, and discipline, integrity. Those are the masculine traits. So let me read a bit more of the article and I'll answer a bit. Let me Royal Risings. Let me get a bit more comments actually before I keep going. Don't forget to hit that like button, family. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit that bell notification. Let's share this out with the younger brothers that we have in the community so that they can start looking into this and opening their mind, taking it off social media, taking it off IG models, taking it off OnlyFans, taking it off any of that foolishness, and let's get into building from the ground up, from the inside up, from the core up. Royal Rising says, this is why boys need men as role models in the home, to be able to guide and assist in maturity and masculinity. Well said, sis. I totally agree with that statement also. And not only in the household, but also in the community. And the men of purpose, the men of character, the men of principle, the men of integrity, honor, truth, need to be praised, need to be empowered, need to be encouraged, need to be given the platform on the floor to step in and speak to these young men, rather than being vilified and ostracized and being cursed out. Like, don't speak to my child. You ain't his daddy. And look at what we've had. So we have to all take accountability. If our sisters want our men to step in, men, let's get the characteristics, let's step into our masculinity, and let's step in. Sisters, step out of the way so we can step in. Because we have to rebuild. Parents are the yin and yang in a child's development. You cannot have yin without the yang. House of Bloom says, yes, great explanation. Thank you. You are very welcome, sis. Mr. Rebel says, a lot of women are trying to heal from men, abuse, rape, murder, etc. I understand why it's skewed. Thank you, sis. Another question. Oh, we've got another question. Okay. MGTOW now playing a part in the growing relationship divide of modern men and women, are these men standing within their masculinity to walk away, or are they in an effeminate mindset? Ooh, sis, you drew me out, huh? You drew me out. Woo. Okay, so I'm gonna answer that question in a second because that's a deep one. But let me read a bit more of the article, right? Because hopefully that might answer your question. So, rules. Let's go. Rules can help to steady a man as he discovers what his values are. It's common for younger men to be less sure of themselves, of what they believe in and what they stand for. Rules light the way. So rules are not really a bad thing in that regard. They light up the way. Younger men may find themselves challenging the rules or sticking to them too resolutely. And I think this is where we can get into the conversation. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to get my channel flagged up, right? For using certain words. I've already said a few things that might get me demonetized. Guys, please like the video, okay? Because I'll be saying some realness out here and YouTube ain't really down for that. You see what I'm saying? So like the video, subscribe, share. You see what I'm saying? Let's get the channel up and let's improve the content so other people can hear the message. The men in the, younger men find themselves challenging. Okay, I read that. The men in the latter camp may conflate the rules of masculinity itself. And this is what's going to go to Rebel Jewel's argument and, House of Bloom's question about MGTOW, men going their own way. So I think we're going to get into some of that right here. And it's a good segue. Younger men find themselves challenging the rules or sticking to them absolutely. The men in the latter camp may conflate the rules with masculinity itself. See it there? A man who laughs and says, I'd never wear a feather boa is unmanly. Sorry, it's unmanly. Is a man hiding behind the rules. A feather boa, for those I don't know, if you think about the William Shakespeare back in the day, those little hats that an artist would wear with a feather coming out of it, right? So something like that. What that doesn't mean manly men wear feather boas, though I guess they could, depends on what manly in that culture in that time. It is rather how the man showcases masculinity. Men who hide behind the rules attack others for not following the rules. They stick their necks out and display their vulnerability to break the man. All must stop. All you must do is attack his rules. But a deeply masculine man wouldn't bother to flaunt judgmental opinions on anything that isn't life or death. Now we're coming to the core, the character, the principle. On the surface level, what would he do? They would stick their neck out. They hide behind the rules and attack others for not following the rules. They stick their necks out and display their vulnerability. To break the man, all you must do is break his rules. Bear that in mind when I'm going to read that, when we go back and speak to that question. I know this is a sensitive subject for a lot of people. Brothers, please do not get in your feelings. I am just sharing to try to build, to try to restore. Because the first thing you do when you go into the army is they break you down to rebuild you back up. The first thing you do when you go to AA for therapy is they break you down to build you back up. So family, we must be broken down to be built back up. And I don't mean broken down in a negative sense. I don't mean broken down the way they've broken us down. No, I mean breaking us down in the sense of taking accountability for what's wrong, what we've done, what we haven't done, and what's been done to us, and then making the adjustment plans to rectify it so we can get out. Big shout out to Plenty Cupcakes 4 in the house, in the building. Big shout out to the BLKMailTV family. Love you all. Big shout out to the BLKMailTV sisters. Sister Code. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, because we'll be doing and dropping a lot of reels and LSGLifestyle stuff back on IG. A deeply masculine man would not bother to flaunt judgmental opinions on anything that isn't life or death, unless he's in a teaching position. Not saying I'm a teacher, I'm just your brother. A deeply masculine man won't bother to flaunt judgmental opinions on anything that isn't life or death. And ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake that men going their own way, women in a modern feminist mindset, is a catalyst for the breakdown of social cohesion between our community. Birth rates are dropping in the West. Not in Africa, though. Remember, this is the Western problem, not a world problem. Oh, okay, let's keep going. Unless he's in a teaching position or he's dealing with somebody he has influence over. Telling a random man who is singing the praises of, I don't know why he's gone there again, receptive butt stuff, that this is not masculine is not what a values-based masculine man does. Why not? Because a core masculine man, a deeply masculine man, doesn't feel an ounce of cognitive dissonance when he comes across unmasculine things. Doesn't make him feel, that's challenging my masculinity, because I'm firm and confident in my masculinity. I can walk on road and tell another man, bro, that outfit looks good, man. You can fly. Because I understand I'm firm and confident in my masculinity to be able to compliment and recognize another man in his own. Some brothers can't do that. He doesn't feel it. He doesn't feel an ounce of cognitive dissonance when he comes across unmasculine things. He's masculine. He knows what he is. He feels neither threatened by the unmasculine image, sites, whatever it was, nor the need to define or defend his masculinity to others. He knows what is and is not masculine, because masculinity is not of the outward show of appearance, but is of an inward core and value of characteristics, morals, standards, discipline, integrity. That's right, sis. First world problems. First world problems. So, gentlemen, what you see on the TV when they're showing you the bad rapper, he's dealing with the girls and he's got the chain, he's got his teeth, gold teeth in his mouth. That's society telling you what it is to be masculine. You're not learning what it is to be masculine because you've got the latest and greatest, you've got the flashiest and the baddest. That's not masculinity. It's part of it. It's of the surface level. But do you want to be a low-level masculine man, or do you want to be a higher-level masculine man who deals with the core of masculinity, the essence, the power? Right? Brothers, you got to ask yourself. You got to come to that understanding, and you got to come to that point of acceptance, because it's going to take work. You got to grow. You got to develop. I had to do it. I'm still doing it, because it's a never-ending battle. It's a never-ending development. So this core masculine man, he knows what is and is not masculine. Others who respect masculinity know this also. And this is what's missing in the West, a lack of respect for masculinity. And I'm going to hold my sisters to account on that one. The sisters that don't do it, big kudos and shout out to you. Make sure you're checking the sisters that do it. Because any belittling of masculinity in our community belittles our community. Men play a fundamental role. Oh, my sister's on fire tonight. She says, So when certain men say no homo, this is a sign of surface masculinity. Yes. Because you're not a homosexual. So why are you afraid of making the reference? That's a surface level show of, oh, you know, I'm not, you know, no, stand in your square. I could look at a man and say, that's a handsome man. He's good looking. He's got a nice body. He's in shape. Why? Because I'm not afraid of my masculinity. Him being in shape and being a good looking guy does not affect or make me ashamed in my masculinity. Because I understand I have a core set of principles that guide me, that hold me, that I can bend and twist whenever I feel like. That's where we have to get to as men. To be able to run your household, to be able to lead your woman, to be able to lead your children, to be able to work with other brothers, to be able to build a community. We're at the bottom of every metric in the Western world. Go check it. Don't believe me. Go check the stats. It's the 10-year period is up. The census has come in. Go check. Right? Stop everybody looking at me like I'm talking madness. This ain't nothing new. So yes, sis, I hope that answered that question also too. Great question. I love it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm definitely going to go back to that question you asked about the MGTOW brothers. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten about it, okay? But let me just hit these points before we close out. We don't have much left, and I can answer the question and go into that. If you have any other questions, ladies, drop the questions in the chat. If you have any questions, brothers, drop your questions in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer. All right? So, he says, others who respect masculinity know this also. Those who neither care for nor want it, he ignores. They are irrelevant along this dimension. Number 2, he doesn't need to waste his breath on proselytizers, right? If any man is preaching something opposite to what you agree with, it's usually only worthwhile to challenge him in a public setting. Why? Where you can both be on equal footing, and then only to sway the public, not to sway the man, the opponent. A lot of people get this misconstrued. Preachers of an argument are the last people you will sway from your own argument. Your objective is to sway the audience. So when I'm speaking, family, I'm speaking to the audience. I'm speaking to you, family. I'm speaking to the men of Black Male TV. I'm speaking to the sisters of Black Male TV. The LSG family, the LSG mindset, those who are ready to make an LSG lifestyle, to make a difference, yeah, to make a change in the narrative so that we can have better outcomes. We're tired of the shucking and jiving, man.
Circus, Afro circus, Afro circus, Afro, polka dot, Afro.
I'm tired of the endless conversations on the YouTube platform that's going on for hours with no solutions in sight. So, right? So, yes, the no homo thing, no. That's surface level masculinity, right? Secondly, a core masculine man doesn't waste his breath on proselytizers. If another man is preaching something opposite to what you agree with, it's usually only worthwhile to challenge him in a very public setting where you can both be on equal footing, and then only to sway the public, not the opponent. Constructive criticisms, if you're both on the same side, are good. So this is where brothers, we have to come in and constructively criticize each other so we can get better. It's always about getting better. It's always about leveling up. It's not about the envy. Because envy is an emotion which occurs when a person lacks another superior quality, achievement, or possession, and either desires it or wishes that the other lacked it. Stop the crabs in a barrel, family. Stop it. Stop it. Let's rise. Constructive criticism, if both are on the same side, are good. Attacking from the peanut gallery, on the other hand, like a monkey in the zoo, throwing them peanuts. Brothers be out here looking like Gollum You see what I'm saying? In the envy, talking about is precious. Yeah, man. These brothers that be talking this foolishness, masculinity to them is like kryptonite to Superman. Yeah, every time. So no, this ain't this. I don't be hitting that just for the ladies. I'll be hitting it for the men them too. Sorry, fellas. But I've got to wake you up sometimes. I've got to hit you hard sometimes because but it's all out of love. It's all out of love. Right? So quit the whining, quit the bumbling.
Had it with your whining and bumbling.
As Skeletor would say. Right? And let's go. All right. So let's go. So don't be throwing peanuts from the gallery, bro. That's not good, right? That's crabs in a barrel. On the other hand, is a big uphill climb that isn't likely to be worth the effort. Pick a better battleground and fight from there if the battle must be fought. What the core masculine man does instead is to note some man talking about the joys of prostate stimulation. Excuse me, close your ears. Closes the browser tab and goes and reads something about business, money, war, power, legacy, or heritage. That's what a core masculine man does. When I see people talking endlessly on the platforms, you know what I do? Exit. Let's go do some work. Exit. Let's go do some work. Because people will waste your time, family. And we are meant to be the leaders of this world. We are meant to be bringing light, understanding, and a higher level of love into this world, because we are the people who have been denied the most. We are the people who understand how much love is really needed in this world, because we know how much care we really need. We really require. But because we've been hurt, we want to walk around with our chest out, with guns drawn, knives raised. Nah, man. That's not masculinity, family. That's a surface level. That's emotional. That's what we masculine men call effeminate. So men going their own way to a certain degree are being surface level masculine men, because what they should be doing, not to shout, not to cuss my brothers in any way, shape, or form, but what they should be doing is standing on certain principles. Some of them, let me retract. Some of them, sister, shouldn't be doing that. There's some of them, however, are standing on principles and are saying, listen, until these women change their attitude, I'm not going to deal with them. Which I understand, because as a man, you must stand on your principle, you must stand on your purpose, and you must stand on those guidelines. Otherwise, you'll be less of a man in yourself. But you don't stand in those principles to not receive a woman. You stand in those principles of masculinity because you're going to receive a woman. Because when a woman comes across that masculine energy, it's sensed. She will try it, and rightly so. She don't want to be with no pums. You know what I'm saying? She don't want to be with, you know what I'm saying? She don't want to be with no, like, you know, Afro circus out here. She wants to be, she don't want to be with no man that the first sign of trouble.
Hello,
like,
man, nigga, that snitch.
Out. Man's out. And you be looking all around like, what the heck just happened? No. All right. No, you want a man that's gonna stand and fight and defend you, the family. But a masculine man, he doesn't debate. A core masculine man doesn't need to debate. He doesn't need to try to enforce the rules on men who are rebelling against those rules. Such men do not concern him in that regard unless they are trying to force their ways onto him, which is unlikely anyway, because he's more of a masculine man and has those principles, morals, and standards. Or they constitute a greater threat to the soul of what? His people. And this is why I've had to step out here. My spirit has been on me to step out here and say some things and share the knowledge that I've learned and the wisdom that I've gained in my walk on this world with my brothers, with my sisters of the next generation, because nobody shared stuff with me, man. I had to learn it. I had to read it. Most men are never going to get excited about bending over to take... Oh, Lord, I don't even know if I want to finish this sentence. Most most men are never going to get excited about bending over to take it up the behind with plastic strap-ons.
Oh my God!
It's not a major threat to the survival of his civilization. No, it's not. But that's why I'm coming out and I'm talking about what I see, because the LGBTQ movement and all of that, crazy as that movement might be at this moment in time, that's not detrimental. That's not more detrimental than men and women separating and not coming together to have families of in any culture, any race in the West. That's more detrimental. I need to get the clip. There was a woman that said we don't need to have kids. That's the feminist mindset. She said we don't need to have kids. Feminist 4.0. If you don't need to have kids, where's the next generation coming from? Are we just going to stop living? Society teaches you these things. A man whose masculinity stems from his internals doesn't care about an unmasculine man. To him, they fall into the same branch as a woman. Silly. If not necessarily cute and chaotic, they aren't men he talks serious matters with or view as men. This is now you call your lower level IQ brothers. You know what I'm saying? Some of them roadman, some of them that in the corporate world, you know what I'm saying, just quite haven't clicked yet. Because there's some brothers who are in the streets and in the road who are very masculine and very clued up. Nipsey Hussle, for example, just to throw a name out. But there are other brothers who are just gone. And sisters, you must not be hoodwinked by a surface level masculinity of a man. Look deeper. Look deeper. Don't give up your coochie to a man that's got given you surface level masculinity. You're meant to be giving it up to a man that's got core masculinity, because a core masculine man is always about alpha, looking after the pack, his family, his people, and that includes his women. Let me read on. He says, they aren't men he talks serious matters with or view as men. They are in the female box. This is where this man places those men. He doesn't need to change them. That's what I said. I ain't trying to convert nobody. I'm just letting you know what is. Take it, leave it. The choice is yours, as my wonderful friend would say.
Now we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. The choice is yours.
That's right. The choice is yours. I ain't here to force nothing down nobody's neck. I'm just speaking. Take what you want, leave what you don't. They are what they are, and that's of known concern to him. So who defines masculinity? One interesting thing about masculinity is that no one explicitly defines it. There is no hammerable, code of masculine laws that every man must follow. However, I disagree with that point right there. Coming from an Israelite perspective of the scripture and the gospel of our Lord, I understand that the fruits of the spirit, the mindset, is the code of a man, because the light of a masculine man was showed in Christ. Some people might disagree. I'm not here to debate that. Like I said, I know what I know, and I stand in my square. Stand in your square. But I know the light that shone and the message that shone. I'm not talking about religion. Recognize that, family. So don't come on my platform and talk that mess with me, because I'll finish you with religion. Religion is an orchestrated social construct. The scriptures speaks about a spiritual higher mindset, a level of masculinity attained from a higher consciousness of behavior, moral standards, principles, ethics. Codified in the fruits of the spirit, the laws of God in the gospel. Summed up in 2 laws, but I'm not going to get into it. That's a conversation for another day. But over here on this platform, we bring those fruits of the spirit into LSG. Love plus support equals growth. Because when you input, gentlemen, when you input trust, truth, accountability, integrity, honor into the foundation as your principle, as your guiding post, when you come together in whatever it is that you do, those are shared principles that we as men, we as women, we as men can rely on and hold on and build on, and our sisters and our women and our wives and our daughters can look to and have hope in. So he goes on, he says, I propose that the understanding of masculinity among various groups in society works like this. He has 2 points. The first point, core masculine men, which we just spoke about earlier. But let's conclude. Men who know what they stand for and who they are and exude masculinity for the sake of being masculine. They can't help it. It just oozes out of them. You got that, James Bond look going on. It's like, I know you sisters be looking at a manly man. You be like, oh, honey child. The way he be looking at me. And some of you ladies be like, oh my God.
I just want to say thanks.
So, masculine man, right? Being masculine, but has a side effect, but as a side effect of their values. So that exuding masculinity that comes from his pores, from his essence, from his being, is a side effect of what? The values that are instilled at the foundational core level, morals, standards, principles, integrity. Those are what exudes the man. Those are the pores of masculine. Those are what pours out of your body as masculine virtue. That's why I say I look to Christ, because in Christ he said what? Truth, temperance, patience, long suffering, kindness, mercy, grace, righteous judgment. Let me read it again. The core masculine man, men who know what they stand for and who they are, and exude masculinity, not for the sake of being masculine, but as a side effect of their values, confidence, and convictions, define masculinity for both themselves and the wider culture. Everyone else in society bases their ideas about masculinity off the core principle masculine men they see, know, follow, and encounter. So you see why the image that I spoke about, Birth of a Nation, last week, why they put the melanated brothers image down, because they don't want people to see, know, follow, and encounter you. In Birth of a Nation, when we were segregated and they showed that propaganda image, the other nations and communities were segregated from us. So they received a false image of who we are, of what a masculine man is for a melanated brother, what a man is, what a sister is. So we have to redefine and rechange, write our own narrative about those views and perspectives. So you want to be a core masculine man, gentlemen. This is what you're attaining to. This is what you're growing and developing in. This is what we're trying to develop you in the leadership course, LSG leadership. Rules-based men, for the brothers who are not quite there yet, we have this for you. This is why we have established LSG, rules-based men. Love plus support equals growth. Here are the rules. Men who follow their cultural rules of masculinity follow rules other rule-based men constructed from their observations of core masculine men. The person who I looked at as my core masculine man to devise the rules that my family, LSG, now promote, stand on, walk on, live by, is Christ in the gospel. Not the one, not Serge Bourgier in the religion. The one in the book, Revelations, the one that has dark skin like bronze and white woolly hair and red eyes. That one. That's who I base my masculinity on. LSG. Love plus support equals growth. You apply the love, you apply the support, because support is a doing. Love is a doing. Love is an action. Support is an action. And from the actions equal growth. So everybody got to put their hand to the plow. The moment somebody stops applying love, the equation breaks down. The moment somebody stops applying support, excuse me, the equation breaks down. It's an equation. Love plus support equals growth. I'll keep saying it. Rules-based men who follow their cultural rules of masculinity follow rules of other rule-based men constructed from their observations of core masculine men. The rules shift and change as different prominent core masculine men influence the cultures that they inhabit. For example, at one point in European history, this tells you who's writing this, because people need to understand European history is not our history. But for instance, at one point in European history, wearing a large cod piece, the piece that covered your protection sack that you have in baseball, for example, and American football, designed to make your genitals look big, was one of the things masculine men did. But at some point, the rules changed and men stopped wearing these. Why? If this theory that he's proposing is correct, the likely first movers at the forefront of "I don't need a codpiece" movement would have been core masculine men who set the standard of core masculinity in the society. Excuse me. The core masculine men who opted not to wear the cod pieces, who did so, the rules-based men noticed that and resolutely. The rules-based men noticed the resolute separation of the cod pieces from the core masculine men, so they thought it was fine to do so also. So when you see certain men saying, "I've had enough of MGTOW, I'm going my own way," then you see how other rules-based men follow and go after that or continue in that step, because they're trying to again ascertain their masculinity. This is why we need brothers like myself, Kevin Samuels, O'Shea Duke Jackson, Blaze Judah. Other brothers are bringing out different perspectives for us to look at so that we can now reestablish these moral standards and principles to redefine the masculinity within our community. He goes on to speak about women. He says women are sensitive to what a man's masculinity stems from, his internals. That's why a woman wants to get to know you. She wants to get to understand your core, what you're about, because she's actually searching for the principles that stem from and are the foundational aspects of a masculine man. But if you're walking around here like a sissy, don't know how to behave, fighting and jucking and jiving with everybody, speaking to people like,
What did you say, nigga?
that, you ain't no core masculine man. You failed in your mission.
Oh, God!
Yeah, no, yeah, I know it hurts, I know. But, dust yourself up. What Jay-Z said. So, women, this is what this article says. He says, women challenge rules-based men on their rules, especially if they can tell a rules-based man is flaunting his knowledge of or fealty to the rules as an attempt to signal masculinity. This is why I say my ladies are on point with this, man. They be catching you brothers out with this foolishness. Stop pretending. Build and develop those principles and stop showing the outward show of masculinity. Ladies, start checking these brothers. If you're looking for a real man and you want to settle down, make sure that you're looking for a brother with a core masculine principles. Women excel at spotting and attacking showboaters. However, they respond very well to core masculine men. And rules-based men who are not showboats may be able to pass themselves off as core masculine men too. The important thing to stress here is that rules-based masculinity is not a bad thing. Speaking about our MGTOW brothers, and it is in fact a stepstone to solid internal masculinity. That's what the men are doing in going their own way. They're trying to reestablish and redefine their masculinity, but they'll be back. The challenges men whose masculinity is based in rules face are: 1, not being too defensive about the rules they follow; 2, not showing off their rules too much; and 3, working to bring their internal value sets to true masculinity, at which point a man is operating from a position of confidence, certainty, and manliness, and is less worried about the rules, thus operating in his core masculinity. So you know that phrase where don't let anyone disrespect you? It's a good masculine rule to follow, for instance, but it has limits. For example, If you're a big jacked up nightclub bouncer and you're going to have a drunk guy come over and try to speak nonsense to you, do you see what I'm saying? And run his mouth off, it might seem masculine to knock his block off, but being a bouncer, being sober, being in a position of authority and being able to subdue this individual, it's more masculine to not engage with that individual at that level and restrain them rather than knocking his block off. So when you have brothers in a nightclub stepping on each other's trainers and shooting up the club, that's a surface level show of masculinity. And I see it all over the place. And I hope this conversation will help you see it all over the place too. And stay clear away from those people because they're still in their development. Or if you are going to engage with them, understand where they are in their development so that you too can best navigate that situation. Fellas, understand where you are in that development so that you too can best navigate your relationships. Rather than everybody running around looking all confused. All right, so let's go down. Let's get down to the meat and bones of it. There we go. Because we're just at the end, right? So he says, how to achieve core masculinity. If you are young, you probably still use rules. Again, dealing with the maturity. If you are young, you probably still use rules-based masculinity. Even if you're older, even if you're older, if you haven't been through situations that have forced you to define who you are, I mentioned that earlier about experience, life experience, and what you stand for to test your rules, and what you are doing all this for, purpose, your masculinity may still be rules-based. So guys, this is where we've got to assess ourselves and look at the situation. Reaching the point where you have a strong internal compass and base your thoughts and actions off that, instead of by following rules you know you are supposed to. So it's the second nature, it comes to you. It's part of looking inward, part of going through enough difficult terrain, through trial and error, you figure out who you are and what you stand for. The journey for men is to become. That's why you have all those Karate Kid stories where they become, they get beat up and then they have to go and train and go through the grueling thing. Rocky had to get beat up and get trained and go through the grueling thing. All the rest of the action heroes have to go through some sort of trial of, they call it the trial of Hercules. Because a man has to go through those steps to test the guidelines that he's put upon himself to test his masculinity. That's a man's journey. And in this modern society, when we remove that, when we have a matriarchal society, when we push negative images into men, zero positive images into men, remove the father from the household, and hypergamy gone nuts, this is why you have the result of men going their own way, because they now have to redefine and find their masculinity, because contrary to what society wants to tell you, we are not feminine. Normally at this point in the article, I would list out a bunch of steps to follow, rules, to pull off a tact or gain a certain kind of experience. But because we are talking about your character here, this is very broad, yet personal. It's a kind of self-development. There are no rules to operating without rules. For figuring out what drives you and what you stand for, I suggest this article as a starting point. That's what he says. He says he wouldn't immediately shy away from your internal solidifications, but it should kick off the process. Don't shy away from the difficulty, gentlemen. Don't shy away from the challenging situations, because ease is a threat to progress. Where you are out of your element and you are adrift, this is where you are your most challenging, where you're most pure, because you are at the borders, testing, pushing the boundaries of who you are as a man, so that you can make a man. I'm going to leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just go back into the questions and have a quick look. So that was the author. Let me go look at you guys questions. Oh my gosh, you lot lost a lot of messages. Big shout out to all of you. Big shout out to Rebel Jewel, Plenty for Cupcakes, Full House of Blooms, FN Logistics, FN Studios, Royal Risings, and everybody else who's watching. Big shout out all the Ninja Watchers. You see what I'm saying? Love you. I know who you are. Don't worry. I'm going to be putting you up on one of these platforms soon. All right? You know what I'm saying? My sister, her question that she dropped before we close out was, I think I answered it. Did I answer it? With MGTOW now playing a part in relationship divide of modern men and women, are these men standing within their masculinity to walk away, or are they in their feminine mindset? So I hope I answered that. Leave a comment below if I didn't, but I think I did. You see what I'm saying? And yeah, so family. It's deep, it's big, it's something that we have to get to grips with. It's something that we have to address. So fellas, as part of this series of changing the male image, first we have to recognize where we are, and then we have to look to where we want to go, because it's all about positive minds, positive lifestyle, positive relationships, positive business, growth, prosperity, heritage, and legacy. Let's deal with it. Let's grow with it. Let's be about it. Let's get on our grind. Let's finish the mission. All right, family? And with that, I would say that's all, folks.